thing here. Hi guys, it's Alan. Targeted individual. That's my targeted shirt, V2K. And again, I kind of hit on the same things just because those are the things that are prevalent to me. And if it's prevalent to me, it's probably prevalent to a lot of other people going through the exact same thing. I don't know if it was getting to be too much for our government, but obviously with Havana syndrome happening, it would seem that it's getting to be a bit too much for our government to take. So they wanted to blame another government, Cuba. They wanted to blame another government like Cuba. And that's why they kept on having these meetings, the White House bioethics meetings, to make it look like they're trying to do something. You know, they're trying their best. They're, in essence, trying. Sure, that doesn't work. Anyway, here it is here. They are doing this. In my case, it's over 36, 37 years. And I mean years, literally. When I say years, I mean years. And I didn't know what it was. I went all that time not knowing what caused all that side pain for years. Just not knowing what caused it. Constantly in pain on my side. Not knowing what caused it. And I did have a doctor that was nice and allowed me to see a specialist and get pain meds for, I'd say, about 15 years. They didn't have a diagnosis, but at least they gave me some pain meds. But the thing is, it's like you just figure your doctor doesn't know, and no doctor knows everything. There's thousands of illnesses and things, and that could very well be the case that, you know, maybe your doctor doesn't know. And I was just accepting that maybe they just didn't know what it was. But then you find out, well, what happened is I went 30 years. I had broken my arm in football in high school. And this is in Dallas, Oregon. And so I went and had my arm operated on, like that day or the next day, and broke my arm, separated my shoulder. And they did a pretty good job on my arm and shoulder. It took months, but within some months, I started getting these little, it feels like little zaps, or just you double over in pain on your side. It feels like a little heart attack, but when you're 15, 16 years old, you know it's not that. You think, well, it could be stress or gas, or toughed it through, then went to Bible college, and I would study for Life of Christ class, and then, or some class, and then just out of the blue, double over in pain, just double over. And then it kept happening. This was in high school. Something would shoot me like an electronic zap, and then I'd double over in pain. And again, you don't know what's causing it. You just know you're in pain. And so you go to a doctor hoping in that one in North Dakota, Ellendale, North Dakota, was saying, well, do you have gas and do you have bowel? And I didn't know what a bowel movement was. So he just said, well, do you shit? And it's like, oh, yeah, that's not a problem. Like I was drinking too much 7-Up or something. And it's like, no. So I literally started doing this and like just trying anything, and, you know, just get off work, have a few beers, just relax, have some cigarettes, deal with, you know. And you never in my mind did I thought they were very conservative, religious people in the town. I mean, there was always some people, but I just know the town was very, even in our secular schools, our grade schools have weekday school of the Bible. I mean, in all the secular schools, Lyle, Whitworth, Oakdale, it's very proud of itself being a very evangelical town, which, when you're raised in it and you're studying for a ministry, I mean, you think it's a good thing. But so you don't think that they're going to try to use its own population, especially when you never hurt anybody, never got in trouble yourself or gotten anybody else in trouble, that those same people are going to take some of their own citizens and experiment and torture them every day of their life. I knew I was in pain every day on my side. It's this constant, a constant feel, like a painful thing, like right there on my side. And if you even start to hit on it, anything, sometimes it's a tissue and it just kind of back and forth, but it's a constant thing too. But I've had about 7 or 8 times where they turned off whatever it was, like a electronic flutter or pulse, and made it feel normal. I used to constantly, I still do, relax, meditate, try to relax and meditate on my side. Sometimes even for hours, just to try to relax it, thinking I could do something. And about 7 or 8 times, there's once or twice out of after prayer or meditation that it just relaxed, but about 7 or 8 times, it just stopped. And my heart, my side area, I know the heart's right here, but it's on the left side, and it felt normal and it felt wonderful in my normal state, my emotions, everything felt wonderful for a few hours. And I'm thinking, well, there isn't a change in medication. What? Or you're just thankful. You think maybe God healed it or something. You're just thankful and hope it stays. But within 3 or 4 hours, you realize it's still there. It comes right back. 3 or 4 hours later, you wake up the next day. If it happens at nighttime, and then it's right there. And it wasn't until 2015, 2016, where you start getting all this weird street theater, people holding up their cameras and videotaping you and acting strange. And you don't want to sound paranoid. And I've never been to the police for anything. I've never asked for their help for anything. So I'd let this go on. I'd go outside in my backyard for a cigarette, and I could hear a shudder of a camera. You could hear it. I mean, somebody taking your picture. And I just feel like, well, I don't have any enemies. I haven't hurt anybody really ever. I think one time I ended up having too much to drink one time. Didn't get in an argument or anything, but just a girlfriend's dad had to come drive a couple hours and pick me up. That was the worst thing, really. That involved anybody, that they had to go and do something to get myself out. I didn't want to argue with a girlfriend, and so I decided to just go outside and have 8 or 9 beers at the time, and then again, didn't argue, but just got sick and then sat out in the car, and then the girlfriend's dad had to come pick me up, but that was bad. But it wasn't that was the worst thing. But it's never hurt anybody. Never. So I didn't have enemies, but they ended up doing this to me when I was 15, and I literally went 30 years of this torture. And at least for 15 years at that time, they were giving me pain meds. But then again, because there was pressure to get rid of pain meds all over the country because of OxyContin and overdose deaths. And so they still, they tried to put me on something that didn't work very good. So it's and I didn't know this whole thing was a strategy to get rid of the evidence, get rid of targeted individuals, not the whole thing, but in my own personal case, that they were doing that for me, it was a case to get rid of me in the hopes that I would be dead, off myself, overdose something to get rid of me, because it would be too much. And it wasn't until from the computer and finding out about target individuals, and they started doing this piping sounds through the underneath the garage that my neighbors owned, piping up sounds, electronic sounds, they're talking to you. hoping that you go downstairs and do a break and enter or something like that to get a police record or make it look like you're crazy. And I never took the bait. I just let it go on for months because I had no reason to, have enemies. Nobody would be reason to taking the camera and taking my picture, and people with their video cameras and doing this. And trying to make me look like, and then, like you're hearing things and this and that. And of course, but then finally I said, well, what's the big deal? I'll just go down there and see. So I went down there and it's like, yeah, my name is this Alan Nielsen-Brewer. And is there a warrant? Or it's like, there shouldn't be. But I was like, why? It's like, why? And then a bit of an attitude the lady did, and just kind of like, so for the first time I ever talked to a cop, and then his girlfriend cop. And of course, then it was like, well, do you ever think you need psychological counseling? And before I got home, I just listened to them talk about psychological counseling. And before I got home, the counselor person was already calling me up and trying to make it look like a psychological issue. And I had never heard of targeted individuals, voice to skull, anything like this. I knew that the government in the past had done evil things, MK Ultra, all that stuff, experimenting with, Navy people with syphilis. Not telling them, in the past. And then you think, well, now they're better. They wouldn't pull that shit. They wouldn't. There's the internet. There's too much people knowing about stuff, and they got the internet and people talking. People do talk, and people write books. And there are books written on this thing. There's this. The Electromagnetic Revolution and Federal Targeted Individual Program by John Phillips. Contributing corporations and federal agencies in Idaho. And it describes and it shows the patents to the technology. There are lots of books, like over 100 in the last 10 years, written on this subject. There's Gang Stalking and Mind Control by Anthony Forwood. That's the only one he's done. Now, him and Robert Duncan, he's the one that him and Dr. John Hall are probably two of the main authorities that target individuals go to try to get answers on the subject. He's one of the scientists from the CIA and DARPA and all this that helped make the technology. They were compartmentalized. They knew they were working on something, but they didn't know all the details of what they're working on until they put everything together. And this is a torture program. I mean, they can use this technology, mind reading, artificial synthetic telepathy, so that a paralyzed person can think a thought and have it, but they can't communicate it. So they can just think a thought and have it appear on the screen for the first time. They can communicate with the outside world, with people, and have it appear on the screen, have an actual conversation back and forth. So it's wonderful in that sense. They can take a thought that they can't verbalize or write because they're paralyzed, but now they can read the thoughts and have it appear on the screen and have the person, and they can read it. They can have an actual conversation just by thinking words. Well, some people take that technology and do wonderful things to help people that are paralyzed or locked in syndrome, but other people in our government take that same technology and find a way to torture people. And this is part of the Target Individual Program. They use this and use voice to skull, which is a military technology, to try to torture people by reading their thoughts. And through a very subliminal approach, your next door neighbor or person standing next to you wouldn't be able to hear what's being told, but your private thoughts are being read back to you. And then they comment on your thoughts, like normally in a negative way. And it's all done to torture you psychologically, to make you kill yourself, or to stress you out, make you look nuts, to where you'll be discredited, maybe become homeless. And then you get these zaps, like directed energy weapons, what Havana syndrome was all about all these years. Havana syndrome, all these, satellites hitting people. There could be that, but I just think it's during operations. They leave implants, call it just like not pacemakers, but something, a technological device, not, it's like people, this is done all the time, whether herniated meshes, whether pacemakers or knees, they use electronic things to read pacemakers and send the information. Biometrics is one of the terms for it, so that people and doctors can read the vital signs of a patient, like in the heart, and have it sent back through a computer. And they don't even have to change the batteries now. And they are doing this, but for some people, they use it as a torture device, and they can send electronic, just by pushing buttons, they can send electronic jolts to torture people. And if you don't believe me, you can watch it's on my YouTube channel on created playlist. This 2011 and 2012 bioethics under Obama. And one of the main people for it is Dr. Anthony Fauci's wife. She's a brilliant scientist in her own, Dr. Christine Grady. She is a bioethicist, has a degree in nursing and ethics philosophy. But the thing is, they're a ethical board. I don't know about a legal board. Some are lawyers, but they try to do it to where they don't actually do anything. They do a lot of listening and talking, which is great, but they could stop this program, and they listen to people complain about it and know it's being done, but they make it, it's window dressing. It's window dressing to make it look like, yeah, we're trying, we're listening, we're holding your hand. It's like the Catholic Church or the Protestant Church. They're going to pretend to listen to people who have been abused by whether priests in the Catholic Church or the Southern Baptists or different denominations, Protestants, being molested, and hold a hand and pray with them. But they won't stop the abuse, because that would take some of their money. That might embarrass some of their friends if they actually took action. And in the case of the targeted individual program, some of the people's money and some of the people being embarrassed are important people in City Hall, because they knew about it. They went along with it. They helped cover it up, and it would be embarrassing. Well, so what? You're torturing people. If it came out, and it is coming out, it should be embarrassing that people who claim to be normally religious, spiritual, ethical are allowing torture. And not just for a couple days or a couple minutes or a couple hours, for people's entire lifetime. And when the person knows about it, like in my case, after 30 years, and I go to the police and ask for help, they just say it's psychological. And then I go to the rally in Portland, the targeted individual rally with Ella Free, Dr. Matt Meeks, a bunch of wonderful people, and find out that's what's been going on to me. Then I come back, and in November 2019, I write in front of the police City Hall, "Don't target me, you dumbass," or something like that, because that's how they referred to me. That was one of when they mess with your computer and you can't get your computer to work. And I figured, well, if they're making fun of me, what would they use as a password? Probably dumbass. It's like I write it, and that cleared up my computer. That's how they viewed me, because I didn't know all the torture. Me needing pain meds for all these years and decades wasn't something I needed to go through at all. They did this. I didn't have to go through any of this torture, any needing pain meds, any of this, except they wanted to expose me to torture so that they can get money for it. This is a very evangelical, religious town exposing its people to torture and trying to make its citizens commit suicide. But they're very religious outside that, very religious people, very Christian. And to a person who was studying for the ministry himself, me. So, because that's what I spent my life doing, studying Christian apologetics and atheist apologetics and, but I didn't have any enemies. I thought they were good, wonderful people that tried, but I was always in pain. I didn't know. I certainly didn't accuse anybody, because I didn't think there was anybody that would do something that gross or icky or evil. Because this is one of those towns that say they're going to drain the swamp, drain that swamp, drain that swamp. And the whole time they're taking swamp money for the most evil of things, torture. torture. And part of the groups that I believe is Georgetown, a great university, but they're working on this technology a lot. And I think it's Penn State or University of Pennsylvania and Georgetown and some of the schools in MIT and Southern California, where a bunch of these Silicon Valley types are using brain-computer interface, turning humans into cyborgs, experimenting on people, a bunch of gay men in Palm Springs, making them hear the voice of Linda, and it's like experimenting on them because some religious right wing or police or whatever pick on a group of people to embarrass them, to ostracize them, make them look crazy, and they get money for experimenting and torturing people. So again, that's our government. While they're chanting "drain the swamp, drain the swamp," and it's not just, it's Republicans and Democrats. Democrats at least gave some attention to it. Bill Clinton apologized for 1995 for the abuses that was happening to the American people. It's history of experimentation. Obama in 2011 and 2012 started, in 2009 started the Bioethics Commission. There might have been previous bioethics, but they listened to target individuals. And again, that's on my created playlist. You can see it, both in 2011 and 2012. And the comments section where people are talking, and actual target individuals give their testimony of being tortured by our government. And wouldn't you know it, within about 3 years, suddenly Havana syndrome kicks out. It's like, oh, people are being tortured. People in our own government's being tortured. And it's not us. It's another government doing it. It's Havana, Cuba, with all their tremendous technological advances in science and torture. They're doing it to us. Where are they doing this from? Where do they get the brains for this technology? It must be Havana, Cuba. Anyway, nobody bought that for too much. They knew, some people didn't believe the technology was real. And unfortunately, some people still didn't believe that the microwave, this stuff has been real for the last 50, 60 years in Russia, China, and America, especially America. But they wanted to blame it. Our country wanted to blame it on China, wanted to blame it on Russia or Cuba. Somebody's doing it to our leaders. But it was so embarrassing and became too well known and widespread that our governments, even our little town Dallas, was doing it to me. And if they're doing it to me to raise, to get life insurance money, for all I know, when I die, again, they did it to me when I was studying to be a minister. And it's like, it's just disgusting. And you'd think has one person, for all their talk on ethics and religion and old-fashioned values and drain the swamp, do you think one person either had the honesty or the integrity or ethics, guilt, anything, to apologize and admit it, even though I already know it? Did you think? It's like, no, not one. For all the religion, all the stuff, it's just not one of them. And it was like literally God, or reality, whatever you call, spoke to me and just said, this is who the people really are. If there's a choice, Jesus would say, you can't serve God, you can't serve money and God, you can't serve two masters. And it's like saying, call it the new International Jive Allen version. This is who they really are. You can't serve two masters. If there's a choice between doing ethics, doing what's right, doing what your family values, doing that, or taking money, torture money even. They'll take torture money every time, every day of the week. I don't care how religious, how spiritual. I'll take a little sound at church. They will take, of all things, torture money. Doesn't matter if they're Democrat, Republican, Catholic, Protestant. They will cover it up. and they're just like the Catholic Church covering it up. Pedophilia, it's just like the Southern Baptist covering up their pedophilia or their, it's just, these are people that will torture, get money for torture, including some doctors and hospitals and city hall and sheriffs and deputies. And they will cover this stuff up. And I'm glad after 30 years to have an answer. Hi, Burger Boy. Oh, I've heard of you. I don't know if you're the actual Burger Boy, but you're just a guy from the Fusion Center, but you can pretend to be Nerve Dorkhead Gorilla or whatever his name is. It doesn't bother me one bit because I think they're all them and the Burger Boy, Nerve Gorilla, whatever, and the guys who are against him. They're all in this thing together where they attack, they invite Nerve Gorilla on, and they act like they're enemies. And oh, it's like it's a bunch of, they're all in on it together. So I don't go into it. Go play with yourself. And I mean that in a Christian way. Well, okay, I'm not going to waste my time with you. So, anyway, they're in on it, and they invite the same guy to their chats. And this Nerve Gorilla, Burger Boy, they invite him to their chats. And it's just a guy or a lady from the Fusion Center pretending to be this guy, and then they invite him, hey, you need to go in this chat. And then they have people pretending to be this guy. And he's actually somebody from the Fusion Center using, his little avatar or whatever. And, or same thing with Chief Handler. It's not one person. It's just people from the Fusion Center that are paid by the police. So anyway, when you hear Chief Handler or something, or it's just, I even went on one of the chats and a person named Chief Handler, and it's just, I'm not going to waste my time with them. It's police, it's Fusion Centers, and they've got all, it's just, they're not worth taking their, I've been through this for 30 some odd years before I even found out that I was what it was. I just had pain. I didn't know it was directed energy weapons or Havana syndrome. There wasn't something called Havana. You're just in pain, fucking just pain. And you don't know why. You go to the doctors and specialists, they give you pain meds, and you don't know why, and there isn't a name for it, just pain. And then the same thing's starting to happen. It's on the news every night for 5 years. Every night for 5 years. Somebody else, Kamala Harris's people, the CIA's people, the people at the White House, Secret Service people, wonderful Ella Free interviewed tons of these people. Romola D interviewed tons of these people. And it's just, and again, we don't know who's real and who's perps and all that. I don't even get into that discussion, like I say, this Burger Boy, nothing against you, Burger Boy, because you might be real, but it's just, I think you're a bunch of people from the Fusion Center. So, and you get paid to do a job like they are, like the police are getting paid to do their job of gang stalking, honking horns, same with their little, it's made so when a person talks about it, they're made to look paranoid, and it's just, yeah, I go out and have a cigarette and they do their little honk thing and the neighbors do their little, and that's just, yeah, okay. It's been years now and I just kind of like, oh, okay. They get more mad that I don't react, and that they get paid. So I'm a job creator. I should run for politics because I'm a real job creator. So anyway, the things that our government wastes money on, torture. And the worst part is how many people get into this thinking they're doing a good thing, thinking that they're doing it to bring people back closer to Christ, or, convince people to do it for money, but they say, oh, it's to bring them closer to the Lord because and it's like, they did this to me when I was studying for the ministry, when I was studying to be an apologist, an evangelist. And that's what I had spent my years since I was 13 studying Christian and atheistic apologetics. And so it's just, that's what I spent my entire life ever since 13, and studying all that stuff, and just like, but then it's like, And one of the non-canonical gospels, I think it was Gospel of Thomas or Gospel of Judas, might have been, or Gospel of Mary. These are gospels that weren't put in the canon of Scripture. But I think it was Judas or Gospel of Thomas, where he says to his disciples, "You are not, you are of your father." It's kind of like when he says of some of the Pharisees, "You are of your father, the devil." But his disciples like, well, we're worshiping you. You're the son of our God. And Jesus is saying, you're not. It's not my God. You're following their God. Like, and they calls him Saklos or Yaldeboro, something like that. It's a weird name. And it's like saying you're still following the God of this world or the God of the Old Testament, kind of the Docetist, the Demiurge, however pronounce it. Some of the earliest Christians, in fact, the first Bible ever made in the Christian church, was a one that was Gnostic, that believed the Old Testament God was an evil God, and that the Christian disciples were raised on the evil Yahweh. Now, I'm not trying to convince you to this. I'm not trying to convince you of that, but it's just, I think a lot of people today, whether Jewish, Christian, Muslim, or atheist, they're literally worshiping the God of this world, which is greed and money. And Jesus, we know how he treated that. When push comes to shove, every single time, they will pick money and greed. They just do. They pick money and greed, and even if that money comes from torture and suicide, this is the money they will grab for it, and just hope nobody gets caught. Hope nobody finds out what the whole program is, because it'll be embarrassing, because they're very religious, that they put their patients or citizens or their neighbors, they put a friend who never did anything wrong to them, into a torture suicide program. But they're very religious outside of that, and they get money for this program. But besides that, they're great, and they're going to drain the swamp. So, sorry, Burger Boy, keep on writing whatever you're going to write. Nothing against you or the Fusion Center. So, and they still do it. I still get these zaps. This right here is when I went to the Dallas police, and I wrote, "Don't target me, dumbasses." I wrote it in front of a cop car with its lights on so that they would see me on purpose. They couldn't ignore it. To their credit, they were nice and talked, and it's like they acted like they didn't know what was going on. And this is in November 2019. And I wrote Alan Nielsen TI because they can't act like they didn't know. So I went in, and in 2019 and 2020, I kept going. It was during the pandemic. So I had to go to court to explain. Then I asked for a lawyer. And then I asked, so they gave me a lawyer, just for, it's like, "Your Honor, have you heard of the targeted individual program?" And my lawyer, court appointed, just simply said, don't bring that up. Don't bring up the court. Don't bring that, the target individual. It's like, "Your Honor, have you heard of the target individual program?" And in fairness, the judge was nice and decent, and my lawyer was but it's like, don't bring up the part of the program, a government-run program of torture and money for suicide. Don't bring it up, that the police and, government and law enforcement and judges and juries, I don't know about that judge, seemed decent, but I would have said that about the police in Dallas. I would have said that about the doctors in the hospital. But I guess when it comes to Christianity or religion or common sense, just basic secular humanist, common sense ethics, don't torture people. But I guess for the people of Dallas and for the Republicans or Democrats in Salem too, they need to have it written in a law that something needs to be illegal for them to not do it, because they don't have enough basic common sense goodness to not torture people for money, because it seems like common sense, but they could be 50, 40, 30, 20. You think a third grader could know, don't torture people, do unto others. Don't torture people, try to get them to kill themselves for money. Don't go to their funeral. Don't hope to create a school shooting and then, be on camera with all your law enforcement buddies and say, we're going to build back better. We're going to be Salem strong. We're going to, your time to be on TV in the sunshine. Oh, I'm going to build this community better, even though I'm the guy that actually got the money to torture this person, this Myron May, this Aaron Alexis, this Nashville shooter who has a manifesto that the FBI doesn't want to release because it could be embarrassing to him. Wink, wink, targeted individual program. Right, Burger Boy? Anyway, this is the proof that I went to the Dallas. It's kind of hard. I admit it's hard to citation and compliance with criminal mischief 3. I'm not, I don't encourage people to do it, but when they're torturing you and you're trying to bring attention to torture, and all you do is take some chalk and write on the street, hey, quit torturing me. I'm not torturing them. The only one I did was that somebody had to come out and erase it. Take some soapy water or just a faucet and just run some water over it. And that's all they had to do. That's all. But they tortured me for 37 years every single day. But still, they're going to drain the swamp, aren't they? They're getting money for torture and suicide. But they wonder why when it comes to, because this is coming out. Look at the 2011 and 2012 White House bioethics. This is 3 years before Havana syndrome. Before Havana syndrome came out, and it's like, oh, it's other governments. They're doing it to us too. Oh, it's a mystery. And then people, even Glenn Greenwald was like, well, and Jimmy Dore, some people, and Tucker, I think knew it was real. But I forget at the end when they had the Jason group, the most elite scientists in America, come out and say that, it's chirping crickets. This science has been out there for over 50, 60 years. They have pictures. They even showed it on Fox News and CNN. Jennifer Griffith showed the patents to the technology on Fox News. And the Jasons, the most elite of scientists in America, came out and said, we think it's because Trump was going to get rid of the Jasons because they don't do anything. They haven't done anything since the Vietnam War, really. And they were trying to keep their jobs. They're already wealthy. There's the preeminent scientists in their field. And Trump wanted to do away with the Jasons because they weren't doing it. Now, to keep their job, they said that, yes, we'll say whatever you want us to say. It's crickets. We'll go with crickets. I mean, that's how piss poor our science and medicine and universities. They will say anything that our government tells them to do to get their next paycheck. I mean, there are books and textbooks showing with pictures of the machines that do this technology. But the Jasons just, what do you want us to say to keep our job, to keep the Jasons afloat? So I can tell people I'm part of the Jasons, the elite science field of our country. I'm a Jason. And it's like, well, if you want to keep your job and keep the Jasons still going, you have to say it's crickets chirping. Crickets chirping. Oh, okay, yeah, it's crickets chirping. And then you turn on Fox and Jennifer Griffin's showing pictures of the technology and showing the patents to the technology and pictures of the actual old machines that used to do it. And now they're a lot smaller. So I did have one time a criticism saying I need to be more positive and uplifting. Now, for me, being honest and knowing what I went through for 30 years, of torture and not having an answer, like, Lord, what is this? Just either heal it, just tell me what it is. Like, it's like if you're religious, you go to heaven, you want God to tell you the answer. We all have that scenario but when you're in pain and torture, it's like, what is it? And to find out that I didn't have to go through all this torture all these years. They made a choice to put me in this program in my little religious town of Dallas, and now in Salem. And they're still going along with it, even though they know that I know. I even have the books. I have the books showing it. I have the books showing, and there's tons. There's over 100 books in the back of this bibliography showing all the different types of, like, yeah, right here, showing all these different books about targeted individuals written in the last 10 to 15 years. There's another page turner, all these books, each individually about targeted individuals from people all over the world. Yeah, this is going to ruin you. The fact that you guys, even when we come to you for help and you still, don't bring out the elephant in the room. It's like Shaheen had said, the horse had already left the barn. It's been out of the barn for a long time. That's why you invented Havana syndrome. So anyway, the great thing is with these books and with Havana, I'm almost thinking that the government is tired of it. That's why they put that Havana syndrome. I'm not saying that those people, I don't know if they're real or, and I don't want to say that they weren't, because that's the worst thing as a TI, not being believed sucks. But with Havana syndrome in the news every day for 5 years, I think our own government is so tired of having to deal with this and trying to cover it up. They already allotted $36 million to those people, and just they want to pay it up, make some laws to make it illegal, because if it gets totally out of hand like it is already, it's just going to get worse. And other countries have it now and have had it for years and decades. So we have to make up laws for this. So what we can do is, what we are trying to do is make up videos, hopefully. But again, about the only people that see my videos now are Fusion Center people pretending to be TIs or Burger Boy, whatever. And again, I'm not even saying this is the real Burger Boy. It's probably just somebody. I hope you have a good day, Burger Boy, whatever. Hope you and your group have a good day. I do I don't try to return the insults, just because I don't want to give them extra stamina, or extra motivation to hurt me by. But if I do a video and just let it all out, this is positive for me, because I went 30 years not knowing what it was, and having to have that constant zzz, constant, very ELF, extremely low frequency side pain that numbs it. It's like a necrotic deadened. But I felt 7 or 8 times where they just turned off that buzzing and relaxed it, and it felt wonderful. And it's like, this is how it's supposed to always feel. And then it came right back after about 4 or 5 hours, about 8 times in my life. And then I went to the Ella Free Rally and saw all these books. And for the first time, these questions and the issues that we're all consuming finally answered, only to find out the people in my own town were doing it on purpose and were covering it up. And now in Salem, they're doing it too. And again, in high school, I was most friendliest of my class. Most likely, nobody likes a person patting themselves on the back saying this and that, but I just was. I didn't. I just was. I was nice, and I don't go out of my way to piss people off. I was raised evangelical, even pray for your enemies, that whole bit, when I was especially studying for the ministry. Anyway, to me, this is positive for me. And, but it's also makes you understand, like when Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas says, you are still worshiping your God, the God of this world. Saklas, Saklas, or Yaldabaoth. It's not in the Bible. It's in one of the other Gospels that were found at Nag Hammadi, the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was either the Gospel of Thomas or Gospel of Judas, the non-canonical Gospels that some of the other groups of Christians had that weren't allowed into the canon of Scripture. So there was other books, but they weren't, by vote, they weren't allowed into the Bible. So anyway, I'm going to do some cleaning up, and I hope you guys are doing it. For me, it's wonderful knowing I have an answer, but it does make it makes your eye open. about how you view the world and how, after hearing all these people at the same time, this is from 2015, 2016 to 2020, 2022, even now, 2030, how people can chant, drain that swamp when they're with their buddies, and then turn around the next day or that night and be part of this program too. And so it's really eye-opening, and it makes you wonder. It's like it makes you understand when Jesus says you can't serve God and money. And normally these people say, well, you can love less. You can love one a little less. You got to put God first, but money's a close second. It's like, no. Jesus said, no, you can't. Not when it's something like this. You got to make a choice, and they made their choice. You can't both love God and torture and get money for torture. And they've made their choice. They've chosen torture and greed. Torture and greed over your Christian faith. So this is a video testimony of who they really are. So, all right, I'll talk to you. Burger Boy, you have a good day. Fusion Center, you have a good Saturday. But quit doing this shit to me and to other people. Just quit it. 37 years is way too long, okay? I mean, common sense. Take care, guys. Oh, I gotta end the stream there. That's my shirt. V2K, targeted individuals, and on the other side, Dead Peasants Life Insurance. So if I walk around in Dallas wearing that, showing it says Dead Peasants Life Insurance, showing the people of Dallas that's what they're doing, torturing people for their life insurance. So anyway, I'll talk to you later. Bye, Burger Boy. Bye, guys. TIs, have a good week.